So things are getting really bad in a couple of blue states in the US, and it's not individual accidents. You can notice that the problem is systemic because you have Target closing 3 Portland stores. They're basically deciding that selling stuff in Portland is not profitable anymore. And you also have like some bizarre accidents, some of which are absolutely eerie, where a left leaning journalist was trying to make fun of Scott Adams, and he ended up getting stabbed the next day. He's not the only one, actually. There's around 4 high profile left leaning people that were encouraging the type of culture that we're going to be discussing about, and all of them suffered tragic demise within the last month. I think there's like a CEO lady, there's this journalist, and a couple of others. But at one point you have to ask the question, why is it happening? Because it wasn't happening 5 years ago, at least not to this level. It wasn't this systemic. So what exactly is going on? And I believe the answer to this has to be deeply rooted within the culture. Someone has to articulate that it's happening, because when you put it all together, you notice that the mainstream liberal mindset seems to be that people shouldn't be arrested for anything. This is literally how people believe on Twitter. Now, I don't have a study, I don't have a doctor with a lab coat, but it does seem that the loudest voices, like maybe not a big percentage, but like the loudest voices, is that whenever a crime is happening on Twitter, you see people that are left leaning and they're rooting for the criminal. And when you read the mainstream media, when you read papers from left leaning publications and sources, they are constantly carrying water and making excuses for criminals while trying to demonize the cops as much as possible. So according to them, it seems that no crime should be punished, or if some crimes get punished, they should be a slap on the wrist. The only crimes that I guess like liberals legitimately believe that they may be bad are things like murder, rape, maybe hate speech online. Like that definitely should be punishable. Doing some graffiti on a Jewish cemetery, like that should also be taken care of. As well as ideological crimes, like those are things that should be locked up. But everything else, theft, mugging, looting, stealing, like all of these things, they shouldn't be punished. Because they unironically convince themselves that the stereotype that every single criminal, literally everyone with no exception, is stealing because they have been a victim of society. They unironically believe that poverty is the reason that people steal. Now, they never explain why is it that despite the fact that some of the poor people in America have access to more amenities and have a far better lifestyle than most people have had throughout human history, and even present day in other countries, and yet in other countries or in the past ages of human history, people didn't steal to this extent. And they just do not want to admit that maybe their logic is a little bit flawed. That maybe some people steal just because they think they can get away with it. And by stealing, they are destroying their own neighborhoods. Like, for example, Target closing 3 Portland stores is going to make it very difficult for people to find jobs there if other stores follow suit. And it's also going to make it very difficult for people to do shopping there. And trust me, if anyone disagrees and they say, well, the CEO is greedy, would you open a store in Portland? Would you be the type of person that would open a business there? Because probably not. But anyway, right, this is happening because of the legislation, which obviously is downstream from culture. Like, if every person thinks that crime isn't an issue, eventually the politicians won't crack down on it. So you have slaps on the wrists, you have laws that favor criminals and laws that make it difficult for police officers to do their job. So you're going to have more of this. But what's even more scary is the concept that Jimmy Dore is putting here, and we're going to get into a bit, is that the CEO is rich and greedy, so it's okay if bad things happen, is the same thing that they're trying to push for kids. Comic books, which are marketed towards teenagers, like for instance, there is this new one comic between Catwoman and Batman, and Catwoman is literally saying in this comic book that because Batman is rich and wealthy, he deserved to have his shit stolen by other people. And she actually says that she's now training an army of criminals and people from disparaging walks of life in order to start stealing from the rich. And this is like the mentality that is now being pushed to the younger generation through American media, through American entertainment, through American social media. And the answer is you don't have to live like this. Like, this is not the correct way of living. No other country in the world or the history of mankind had such a system that is sustainable. This just gives rise to the mafia, to criminal gangs that are going to offer protection money in order to guarantee that your store doesn't get robbed. But still, the very fact that people aren't discussing this at a wider scale is what shocks me. Like, the main problem is the ideology in and of itself. People are afraid to question the ideology. They are genuinely afraid to talk about it and say, no, actually, criminals don't steal because they have had a difficult life. And they are afraid to articulate what everyone thinks. And that is the fact that you cannot stereotype and say that every single thief that robs from a jewelry store or that steals an iPhone is doing this because society was mean to him. And not to mention, when you say society, it sounds like this ambiguous thing, like no one can be blamed. And when you're looking at the society where this is happening, they have Democratic mayors, they got Democrat police chiefs, they got Democrat governors, like everything from top to bottom seems to be run by the Democrats, and yet society is to blame. So maybe replace the leaders if that is the case. It is astonishing. But again, when you look into the comment section, you notice whenever there's a crime, like there was, for example, a lady that was arrested, I think it was a Walmart, and she was caught shoplifting, and as she was being handcuffed, she was screaming that Walmart is racist. And I don't blame her. I mean, the culture allows her to do this. So if you say the magic chant, then it makes the police officer be a little bit more concerned while arresting you. Look at this, Jimmy Dore, the CEO of Target, made $17 million last year. Weird that they just don't hire security guards in those 3 stores instead of closing them, isn't it? Something is not right there. Target can't afford security guards, really. So I genuinely respect Jimmy Dore, unlike other left-leaning people, because I do believe that what he says are things that he believes in, and he's not just parroting some talking points. But if that was the case, let's assume that Jimmy Dore did a far better market analysis than Target did. And Target is closing its 3 Portland stores because, even though they could afford security guards, they choose not to. Wouldn't that cause a business opportunity for other stores to open there, Jimmy? Why aren't you opening there a store? I mean, you managed to find a niche in the market, right, Jimmy? You understand that there's no Walmarts or Targets, there's no Targets at Portland. So why don't you open your own store? I mean, you're rich enough to do it. You can crowdfund. You don't need to open a store the equivalent of Target, but surely you can open a small store there, right? Open up a business, Jimmy. Open a business in Portland if you think it's so great. I mean, surely the misinformation campaign from the right wing is exaggerated, and all of these companies, they're just wealthy and greedy, and they refuse to just do business in these stores because maybe they're racist or some shit. But you're not racist. So open a business in Portland, Jimmy. See how that goes. And as you can see, there's people saying, how about we direct the anger at the actual criminals instead of the CEO? And he's amused, right? I don't even know what to say. Most of these people, I don't think they would ever open a business in a place like Portland. I genuinely don't. But they like to moralize and lecture other people for not doing it. When Target has absolutely no responsibility for opening stores anywhere. But what's more interesting is if you're actually from a neighborhood, usually you realize that the mom and pop stores are actually better than Target, right? People go to Target because it's convenient, but all the mom and pop stores end up going bankrupt when Target opens. So if this was actually true, if Target just decided to leave, you would notice a very vibrant community of local shops opening business. But I guarantee to you, it's not going to happen. You're not going to see shops opening in Portland. In fact, the government is very concerned and they call it food deserts. Because you can't buy food from anywhere. Well, this is why, Jimmy. This is why. But now you have the opportunity to save that. You can make an oasis there. You can make a food oasis, they call it. Open your store in Portland. Great business endeavor, I assume. Can even crowdfund it. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.